Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Abdullah Laghari. I'm an associate professor at Department of English, Quaid-e-Awam University of Engineering, Science and Technology. In today's talk, I would like to talk about the action research, its importance in English language teaching. I would like to talk about especially collaborative action research in English language teaching. When we say action research is all about it's a sort of problem solving research. The problem could be any problem, could be, for example, in the social context, problem could be of economics, problem could be a political, problem could be educational. Let's talk about the significance of action research, especially in English language teaching. Before we start speaking on action research, let's talk about, what research is. Research is systematic, rigorous, and ethical process of inquiry designed to discover, interpret, and revise knowledge. Because when you say research, something is already existing, but we have to have a critical eye. We have to look at that thing, particularly in terms of our researcher's eyes. So it is not merely gathering information, it is a disciplined endeavor that creates new understanding or solves problems through a structured, verifiable methodology. It creates new understanding, it brings new innovations that helps us out or that contributes to the body of knowledge. Now let's talk about the purpose of educational research. Uh, what is the reason a hefty budget, billions of dollars are being spent on research, especially on educational research? There must be some concern. There must be some purpose. As it says, educational research is a systematic, intentional inquiry aimed at generating and refining knowledge about teaching, learning, educational systems, and policies. Because our educational policies that need to be revised, right, is a result of conducting research in the domain of education. We finally come to know that there are so many flaws, that there are so many, there's a huge room for the improvement. Its purposes are multifaceted, like addressing theoretical, practical, and ethical dimensions of education, so that there should be, a drastic change in our educational trends, in our educational standards. So for this purpose, the educational research is quite important. And now let's talk about the objectives of my today's keynote talk. The very first one is to understand what action research is. We will be understanding regarding, the theoretical and practical version of what action research actually is. And then to gain an in-depth understanding of how action research works. Yes, it's very important, especially for English language teachers, that how action research works in their immediate context. I'm in the classroom. And then to apply action research in ELT classrooms, what is the implication of action research, especially in English language teaching classrooms, and to investigate the learning outcomes of action research. For example, once teachers are, opting for action research in their classrooms, what is the significance or what are the learning outcomes as a result of implementing and executing the plans of action research? So let's begin. What action research is? It says that action research is a systematic, reflective, and participatory inquiry. Yes, every research is systematic, but action research, I must tell you, action research has got two phases. The phase number one is in which a researcher tries to understand the problem. In action research, we call it, there's a particular term that we say reconnaissance. Reconnaissance is actually an initial or exploratory, or we can say, it's sort of inquiry or a probe in which the researcher tries to understand the problem, but it's systematic. Reflective, it's reflective also, the teacher in the classroom reflects on the classroom occurrences, the classroom events, and its participatory inquiry process. Action research can be individual, can be participatory, can be collaborative also. Conducted by practitioners, teachers, administrators, healthcare workers, etc. And what is the purpose? Because the purpose is to investigate and improve their own professional practice. If teachers are opting for action research in their immediate context, in the classroom, certainly the purpose is to improve their own professional practice, solve real world problems in their specific context. If the domain is different, domain is other than the classrooms, then it can also solve those problems as well and contribute to both local improvement and broader knowledge. Unlike traditional research conducted on people by outside experts, action research is conducted by and for practitioners for themselves. Action research is a transformative means of transformative. It brings about transformation in a teacher or among teachers. Transformation in the sense, for example, once the teachers are going through the process of action research, they'll be finding a sort of transformation in their teaching practices in terms of understanding the teaching and learning scenario of their contexts. So Linda Ross, she conducted a research in which around 20 teachers, Australian teachers, were engaged in that collaborative, project on action research, and she shares her findings of that. And she says that action research is transformative means of responding to the changing profiles of the classrooms and developing new teaching strategies. Of course, it assists teachers to be very innovative and to bring about new changes and strategies in their teaching. Action research is a powerful medium of reflection. Of course, teacher has to be very reflective. That's why we talk about reflexivity, and that is the part of action research. Hence, reflective analysis of one's own teaching develops a greater understanding of the dynamics of classroom practice and leading to curriculum change that enhances learning outcomes for students. Once the teachers are reflecting on their own teaching practices, certainly, they become very critical. The things that are positive, the things that are workable, applicable in their classroom context, they need to be, continued. And the things are the components of teaching which are, unpleasant, are not up to the mark, they need to be revised, and teacher becomes critical in that sense. Such sort of thinking, such sort of strategy helps teachers to revise the existing curricula as well. So action research leads to curriculum change and enhances learning outcomes for students also. Action research aims to bring about change in social situations as a result of group problem solving and collaborations. As I told you, it's not the classroom context that action research talks about. It also aims to bring change in social context, social situations as well, as a result of collaborative activity or collaborative project. As I told you, action research could be conducted individually as well as collaboratively. Let's talk about the importance of action research in case of individuality. Individual action research is a research conducted by one person from the particular domain. This type of research is conducted to analyze and find solution to a specific task or a problem. When you say collaborative action research, in which, for example, it's not the one person, it's not the one entity or the one teacher, rather it's a pool of teachers who are very much interested in solving the issue at the institutional level. But an individual action research, the problem is individual. Teacher tries to solve, the problem he or she is faced with in his own teaching context. But collaborative action research is a research that involves group work, more than one people engaged to analyze the new task which is given to a group of students. Collaborative action research is more empowering than action research conducted individually, as it offers a strong framework for institutional change. Is a tale. Is a sad, as I told you, Okay, collaborative means it's a broader, its context is broader. It can be the institution, or sometimes institutions at national levels. Let's skip this activity. And yes, of course, reflexivity is very crucial part of action research, which is, the conscious, critical, and ongoing process whereby teachers systematically examine their own beliefs, assumptions, identities, biases, practices, and consider how these shape teaching and learning and classroom dynamics. Uh, you know, uh, when you talk about a teacher, for example, how should a teacher be? A teacher should be a researcher. A teacher should be a reflective practitioner. Concerning this, there are questions. For example, why should English language teachers become researchers? Why? What is the need? Yes, this presentation will answer these two questions. Why should they wish to aid research to all their other classroom responsibilities? Linda Ross is a result. She has come to the findings that those teachers who were engaged in a collaborative action research project, you know, they are coming up with these insights. Teacher number one says that it gives teachers an opportunity to reflect on the decisions behind what they do. Yes, action research empowers them or enables them to reflect on their decisions. For example, what is being taught or what should be taught or how the teaching goes on. Teacher number two says it gave me an opportunity to meet with other outside the center, to listen to the ideas and the methods of solving problems which seem to be common to all. When you are engaged in collaborative action research, certainly you have interactions, collaborations with teachers of diverse backgrounds, and this also gives you, insights to solve the problems in a broader context. Then teacher number third says, it felt good to be the part of a project again. I liked having the time and direction to reflect on what I was doing and why. The direction, because each lesson is planned in action. When it comes to execution, or when it comes to action plan, which is the phase number two, as I talked about in the very beginning, action research is systematic. It has got the two phases. Number one is reconnaissance, in which a researcher tries to understand the problem and then comes up with his own action plan, executes it, implements in the context so as to solve the issues. In that sense, okay, teachers in the action plan, they are guided, given instructions or directions, and in that sense, they reflect on what they do and why do they this sort of particular task or implement that particular lesson. Teacher number four said it gave me a great feeling of being part of a progression. Once you are engaged in action research, it's pretty sure okay, you are going to be the part of progression. That you are going to improve your own teaching practices. It is going to lead you towards professional development. It's not just only fulfilling the teaching requirements of a particular stage. It's rather you become very much critical, and it turns out to be an eye opener for you as a teacher. So these were the responses taken from Australian collaborative project on action research. So let's talk about collaborative action research. It has the capacity to initiate and enhance teachers' research skills as a natural extension of a teaching practice, as Linda Ross, she shares her findings. Collaborative classroom inquiry and self-reflection are important components of professional growth and a sound source of pedagogical planning and action. Yes, it influences action research, and those reflections that influence, they turn out to be sound resource for pedagogical planning and action. Once planning and action are in an alignment, they can turn out to be the biggest source. I mean, they can lead to adequate consequences in the part of learners and teachers as well in terms of their own professional development. So let's talk about the benefits that accrue from action research. Number one, systematically, teacher thinks systematically about what happens in the classroom. Yes, they become critical, as I said, they are open to any sort of change. In that sense, they are very much flexible in their plans also. Implementing action where improvements are thought to be possible. Even during the class, a teacher thinks that something that's not working, he has to have an option B as well, plan B as well, because action research practitioners are never rigid. They are rather flexible in their approach. Monitoring and evaluating the effects of the action with a view to continuing the improvement. Once the problems are sorted out and action plan is executed, then that needs to be monitored and effects need to be evaluated so as to ensure the continuing improvement. And then monitoring complex situations critically and practically. Yes, action research aims at monitoring because situations could be complex. And once you are in the practical classrooms, so you as a researcher has to cope up with every sort of situation, and you need to be ready for any sort of complicated situation as well. And then you need to learn and understand why that situation is and what could be the possible solution to solve that particular issue. Implementing a flexible approach is I talked about, is already I talked about, to a classroom improvement through action research and reflection, researching the real complex and often confusing circumstances and constraints of modern classroom. Yes, of course, because generally speaking, every classroom has general issues. Even if we are witnessing the modern century, again, there are constraints of it because students are not, students, especially in third world countries, are not that much inclined towards, learning. It's the modern tools, they turn out to be, diversion for them. So these are the constraints of modern classrooms. Again, action research is a powerful tool to deal with those constraints of the modern classroom, recognizing and translating evolving ideas into action. Let's skip this, and then, yes, in my PhD also, my PhD study was, exploring the English language teaching of undergraduate students and their learning outcomes. So the model that I followed in my PhD studies that was, developed by Stephen Camis and Robin McTaggart, which is one of the most influential frameworks in participatory action research. It presents action research as a dynamic, iterative spiral of self-reflective cycles. Action research, when I say it's a spiral, cyclic, iterative spiral. So, in each cycle, there are cycles. For example, cycle 1 and cycle 2, they are implemented and executed and monitored and, reflected. So these action cycles are implemented unless the problem is solved. So the continuity of cycles depends on the solution of problem. And each cycle has got different 4 stages: act, plan, observe, and reflect. So the concern of these cycles is to improve practice, understand practice, and reform the situation in which practice occurs. So yes, stage 1 is plan, in which a researcher tries to identify a problem or area of improvement based on initial reconnaissance, means initial investigation, to develop a critical research question, to design a strategic action plan informed by a Therian context, to plan data collection methods, to monitor the process and outcomes. Number 2 is act, in which, the researcher implements the planned action. I'm a researcher, a teacher, or action research practitioner in the real world setting, that's a classroom, remains flexible and responsive to emerging realities. Of course, we have to acknowledge them, we have to note them down, and we have to improvise, our own action cycles. Document decisions and adaptations in research journal. We have to keep note taking for every action plan. Step number 3 is observe, systematically gather data using qualitative and quantitative methods, and focus on, it focuses on both process, that how action research works and what sort of results or effects are being witnessed by the implementation of those action research circles or cycles, and then to record unintended consequences and contextual factors. Because in action research, that's very much important, because a researcher can be participatory. He has to participate. Once the research is a part of that particular class, he has to keep his existence is anonymous, because so that a students and teachers should not know, okay, that particular teacher is because of the research purposes. Or sometimes we keep a secret or hidden camera so as to find out the consequences that take place in the real life situation. For example, if the students and teachers are very much aware that their classroom teaching is being recorded, they pretend, and the learning outcomes, the findings does not become natural. So it aims at recording unintended consequences and contextual factors as well. Number fourth one is reflect, analyze, and interpret data to assess the action's impact, evaluate what worked and what did not, what didn't, and why. Critically examine assumptions and power dynamics. Identify new questions or issues that emerged. Share insights with your stakeholders to validate findings. Now, very quickly, let's talk about the purpose of action research. Number one is to improve the practices going on in educational institutions. Then to remove the notion that educational research is the job of a specialist only. No, the teachers themselves need to be very much concerned about it. To make teachers and educational administrators research minded, of course, they have to be very much critical and researchers. To make the school, college, or universities, our education personnel more cooperative and democratic in their work. Yes, to make the environment of the school, college, or university more conducive for effective teaching and learning. Of course, these institutions are for effective transformation, because teaching and learning are all about, the input. If the teacher is very much trained and delivers a positive input, same could be the output as well. And that is quite possible with action research. To provide guidelines to solve immediate problems, to establish feedback and follow-up mechanism. And let's talk about the significance of action research in teacher education. Of course, it is teacher's own professional development when he opts for action research principles in his own teaching. It improves, teacher's own teaching, brings the desired modifications in the behavior of the pupils, brings improvement, and then dispels the fear of solving the problems, gives them opportunities, improves the quality of teaching and learning process without extra financial expenditures. There are no financial expenditures, gives birth to cooperative feeling and develops mutual understanding, reduces wastage and stagnation in teaching and learning process. Finally, the conclusion: action research is a scientific process that includes problem investigations, action process, finding results, and follow processes. The principles of action research are applied in teaching and learning environment to solve the problems inside itself. It is a valuable source for the teachers to develop their knowledge and experience in research field, and this environment enables the teachers and other stakeholders to identify new education problems. It is a continuous process that helps the teachers to engage in systematic inquiry among the students. Yes, dear researchers and students and stakeholders around the world, we must keep in mind the action research. By opting for action research as teachers, this is very much clear that teaching and learning outcomes in the class are going to improve. With action research, it can help teachers to first understand their contextual issues and then plan their lessons accordingly, implement them, and improvise their teaching lessons so as to solve the issue they are faced with in their particular context. Thank you very much for listening. If you got any question, I'll be happy to find your questions. Thank you very much.